Hello. Welcome to Serious About Law, a periodic podcast hosted by me, Merritt McAlister, the Dean at the University of Florida Levin College of Law, where we have serious conversations about law, legal practice, legal education, without taking ourselves too seriously in the process, trying to highlight things that are going on here at the law school with our faculty, our students, and especially our alumni when they are back on campus visiting us. And today, I'm really thrilled to have one of my very favorite people that I've met in this job, Judge Patricia Barksdale, who is a United States Magistrate Judge for the Middle District of Florida in the Jacksonville Division. Judge Barksdale, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Dean McAlister, thank you for having me.
You are many things to the law school, including a very frequent guest and one of the best dressers of Gator attire. I wish this were live so they could see the perfect orange and blue that Judge Barksdale has on today. But thank you for all you do for the law school. I wanted to have a little bit of a conversation just to introduce folks to you who may not know you, although you're pretty well known sort of here in our local community. But Judge, you're a double Gator, UF undergrad, UF for law school. I actually don't know. Where did you grow up?
All right. I was born in Washington, D.C.
Really?
Yes. My father was a Foreign Service officer with the State Department.
Wow.
But in the 70s, you could retire fairly young. Mm-hmm. So he retired for health reasons. And my family, we have 6 kids in the family, went into our station wagon, you know, with the wood panels.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah,
the wood panel station wagon.
Oh, wow.
Boarded the auto train. Got on that and moved to Cocoa Beach, Florida, where my mom started a job at NASA once my dad retired.
Wow. What did she do at NASA?
So I would like to say astronaut or astrophysicist or something like that. But really, she was an executive assistant.
Okay. That's very important.
It was important. And she worked at the beginning of the space shuttle program.
Wow.
So the space shuttle is really near and dear to our hearts.
That's wonderful.
And we grew up in a house right across from the launch pad. So the launch,
oh my goodness.
There's a Banana River, our house, launch pad on the other side.
Wow. Now I'm really glad to know that. I don't think I've ever told you, my father is an astronomer and actually was accepted into NASA and would have been an astronaut. Thankfully did not do it because he might have been on the Challenger explosion. But small sort of...
He was an astronomer.
He's an astronomer,
So what did he do?
He was he had his PhD from University of Virginia and was a professor at Georgia State for many, many years. As my spouse says, he was more prominent and preeminent than I am. So, which is a nice way to keep me in my place. But he's still alive. He just isn't an academic anymore. But
now, did you ever want to be an astronaut?
No, I did have a period of wanting to be an astrophysicist, however. I don't think I knew, or I wanted to be an astrochemist, I think. I don't think I knew what that was. And then my ability in science quickly tapped out. I didn't get that part of the genes in the process. So this isn't about me. This is about you, but small point of commonality. Okay, so grew up in Cocoa Beach. So how old were you when you arrived in Cocoa Beach?
I was 8 years old.
Okay, so does that feel like home?
It does, sort of, although... Mm-hmm. When you move from the D.C. area, so Maryland, D.C. area, to Cocoa Beach, you almost feel out of place in Cocoa Beach because you're either a surfer or an engineer's kid. There's really no in between.
And you were not a surfer.
I wasn't a surfer. I wasn't an engineer's kid.
Okay.
But Cocoa Beach is really nice. I mean, you're either on the Banana River or you're on the Atlantic Ocean. It's a very laid back place to grow up. I mean, shoes were optional anywhere you went.
That sounds
bicycle riding is how you got around. Really no parental oversight whatsoever in any household in Cocoa Beach.
And yet you survived it.
I survived it, yes. My older sister and brother went to University of Florida.
Okay.
And so I just followed them. You know, this was a time, Dean McAlister, when it's different from today. You didn't go on, or at least we didn't go on college tours. We didn't research colleges or anything else. We just thought, this is the place that's cheapest. My brother and sister are going there. I guess I'll go there.
Okay.
And I drove myself up and moved myself in. This is how much things have changed.
Wow.
So I drove my little car.
Was this part of being just like one of 6? That
it's
you would
one of 6.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. It's definitely one of 6.
Okay.
But it was also the time. I mean, I don't think there was as much parental involvement as there is today.
Right.
But especially with 6 kids.
Yeah. You have 3. Did you just let any of them go themselves to college?
way. No, I'm all in.
All right. I figured.
So I went up to University of Florida, just fell in love with it from the very beginning and was all in the undergraduate scene.
What does that mean? You had a good time?
No, I'm not that fun of a person.
Oh,
but
what are you talking about? You make like butter and bagels and all sorts of fun stuff.
Is that fun?
Yeah, I mean, I think so in an adult way, right?
More student government and activities on campus, intramural sports, anything you could do. What
did you study undergrad?
I studied American Studies, which was an interdisciplinary major, so it didn't exist. You just created it with the help of a professor. But it was the very best major you could have if you plan to go to law school.
Sure. So you got a thorough sort of grounding in the foundations of the American system.
You just got to take classes that you really enjoyed. So American literature, American history, American politics, American religion, all of the above. And if you really enjoyed the subject, it was easy to do well in it.
Was law school always part of the plan?
It was.
Okay. From like even before you stepped foot on campus or?
From the time I was really little. I mean, I had a teeny weeny t-shirt almost before I could walk and it said, "Lawyers never lose their appeal." And so my family pushed that lawyer title on me from an early age, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like,
what did they see in you as a young?
I don't know, because I felt like I was a shy child, that I didn't speak my mind and I didn't argue, but that's how I perceived myself.
Okay. They obviously had a different...
They must have perceived me much differently.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was just part of your ecosystem as a child. Were there lawyers in the family?
No.
Okay.
A lot of cousins became lawyers, but no immediate family members were lawyers. So I didn't even know really what lawyers did. That's what I was going to be. Judge too. I knew I was going to be a judge early on. Yes.
How? Why?
I don't know. People called me judge when I was little.
I think that suggests you were were you the rule enforcer kind of thing?
I am a rule enforcer. Of the 6 of the feral children, I was the most likely to follow a rule and enforce a rule. Yes.
All right. I get in trouble because I feel like this is maybe my kinship with you. I was the child who was put in charge when the kids went out of the classroom and you had to have somebody take names for the teacher. That was me.
You,
that was me, which is not not the cool kid, right?
It's usually not the cool kid. No.
I was the opposite of that, right?
It's the teacher's pet.
Yeah.
It's really responsible.
Right.
Yeah. And did you ever, you would never have cheated for someone and said they were there?
No, because I think I have a little rule enforcement in me. So, okay. So you go off to law school because it's been sort of part of the destiny.
Yes.
You stayed here. I assume that was also part of the destiny, right?
You were part of the destiny. So I paid for undergraduate, and I always like to remind my children of that.
Back you paid for it yourself?
Yes, I did. I had 3 jobs. But
really? While in school,
but they remind me that the credit hours were only $25 each. I'm like, okay, well, that's beside the point.
Because they could pay for it themselves if it was only $25. Yeah.
They could. They have a good point there. But I did pay for undergraduate. I was going to pay for law school as well. And so I was a little worried about whether I would do well in law school. So I didn't want to take on a huge debt. So I really only looked at Florida as the law school where I would go because it was the least expensive. I knew Florida. And I was a little bit scared about being in one place for 7 years. But I love Gainesville. And I also thought I could make it a little bit different too. It would be a break from undergraduate years.
Well, and I think that's similar to the way a lot of we still have about a third of our students are undergraduate Gators some of whom are, wondering, is this going to be the same experience, just an extension of undergrad? They want something different. My sense is that many students are able to do that, make it a different experience. Was that true for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like undergraduate, I was a kid in school and I did kid things and I had fun like a kid. And then when law school started, I was an adult going to school. And so that was the big difference. And you live in more adult places. You do more adult things.
Right.
You do less kid things. It really does make a big difference.
Yeah. We have our own little sort of nook of campus, right? It feels different.
It feels different. In fact, I only visited the undergraduate campus for a class. I took construction law in the undergraduate campus.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like, other than being sort of adult-like and doing adult things? You're part of a generation of folks that were in law school that I think were very dynamic. We have a lot of alums from around your era who were really impactful. Tell me about sort of what the experience was like while you were in school.
In school, it was so much different from undergraduate because it was the first time I decided I'm going to focus on academics. And so I did.
You weren't, oh, come on. I feel like you were a little focused in undergrad.
No, I mean, not as much as law school.
Okay. Law school tends to focus the mind.
Yeah. And I did other things in law school, but a lot of it was going to class and studying. Mm-hmm. And then I did some other things like law review. I was a research assistant for Amy Mashburn. Do you remember her?
Yeah, absolutely. I interviewed with her when I was getting this job.
You did?
I did.
She wonderful?
She is.
So she was my boss, and then she became my mentor, and then she became my friend after graduation. Yeah. She was amazing. Yes. Amazing professor.
Yes.
I was a teaching assistant for legal research and writing. And so I did some other things. I played on the softball team.
Okay. We still have a softball team that's very good. Were they good back then?
They were really good.
Okay. Yes. That is we are always good in sports. Maybe, we've had our moments, but yeah.
Yes. Do you want to ask me the team name?
What was the team name?
I'm not going to tell you because it's... It was inappropriate. I did not name the team. I'll tell you after this podcast.
Okay. All right. I did ask the judge if there was anything off limits. I didn't realize that the softball team
name is off limits. I'll let the audience just imagine inappropriate softball name.
All right. But okay. I'm totally distracted by that now. All right.
But I met my husband at a Florida Gator game my first semester. Mm-hmm. And the day we met at that football game, I knew I was going to marry him, and he knew he was going to marry me. It was that
first?
Yes.
Wow.
And so much of my law school free time was spent driving to see him or vice versa. Aww. He was in Jacksonville and I was here. Aww. So that sort of defines a lot of law school for me, besides taking classes and then going to see my now husband for 29 years.
Oh, that's wonderful. Who is also our alum and a wonderful person who's very engaged with the law school. So shout out to David Barksdale. Let's shift gears a little bit. If you always wanted to do law school, you thought you would be a judge, right? You wanted to be a judge. You didn't start out quite there, right? Folks can't immediately become a judge after leaving law school. It takes a little bit to get to that place. Tell me about sort of where were you plotting in terms of a trajectory? What did you want to do as you were starting out? What kind of job opportunities were you looking for?
Well, one of the great things about UF Law was the guidance the professors gave me. Because I didn't have lawyers in my immediate family, I didn't know the trajectory. I had no idea.
Okay. You didn't know what it would take to get to be a judge.
No. And so some of the professors told me I needed to apply for a clerkship if I wanted to be a judge. And I didn't know what a clerkship was. For all I knew, it was an internship with a judge. I had no idea. And so that was the first thing I did, was clerk for Emmett Cox on the 11th Circuit.
Talk about what that is, because that's a very prestigious opportunity right out of law school, and a really impactful experience. What was it like working for Judge Cox?
That best job ever. Judge Cox, he's now passed away, but he was a brilliant, kind mentor for me. Being a law clerk is a lawyer for the judge, is what I tell people. And although you're learning a lot from the judge, you're also serving as the judge's lawyer. And for the 11th Circuit, you're writing draft opinions for the judges and then bench memos for oral arguments. You did a clerkship, didn't you?
I did.
You did several.
I did. Well, so did you, actually. I was preparing for this. I realized you were also a clerk for Judge Corrigan later,
yes.
Which is not the normal order. You normally do it right away, and then
that's such a strange order, right?
It is a strange order. So you were clerking. You had a wonderful experience, and then you started at a law firm, which is a pretty typical thing for today as well, right? Go clerkship to a law firm.
I went to a big law firm. A big national law firm.
Yeah, McGuire Woods, right?
McGuire Woods. Yep. It's based in Virginia, but they had a small Jacksonville office. Okay. Heavy Gator, by the way. Yes, which was a big draw. Yeah. Okay. Lots of orange and blue in that office.
So was Jacksonville now because you were married to David? Or
yes, David. Yeah, he was 5 years older and he had already started at a firm by the time I met him, so it made more sense to move to his hometown. He's still at that firm, by the way. He is a man of little change. Same exact firm. How often does that happen?
That is incredibly rare.
Yeah, he took a little detour to the state attorney's office, but went right back to the firm.
But he sounds like he's a man who knows what he wants, right?
He knows what he wants, and that's not change.
That's awesome. Okay, so you're Jacksonville bound, McGuire Woods. Tell me about being a young associate. You had a few years there. How does that shape your career in any way?
I loved being an associate at a big law firm. And part of that was being with incredible mentors. Marcia Howard, she's our chief judge now.
Also a Gator alum.
Yes, Nathan Goldman, who eventually went to work in-house for CSX. Scott Cairns, who's now retired. These are just wonderful mentors for me. And they gave me a lot of responsibility early on, so much so that I begged for less responsibility. I just wasn't confident in myself. I was one of those young lawyers who was like, no, don't send me in to do the trial work. But it was a terrific job. I loved it. It was a lot of work. I mean, I'm not sure if today's young lawyers spend as much time in the office as we did back then, but it was certainly 60 to 80 hours a week. Was that your experience also?
Yes. No, it's an intense job. I think if folks have not had a professional job before, it's a very difficult starter job, right? To go from being a student to this immersive, intensive experience where you're accounting for every minute of your day. It's tough. And, it's very formative, I think, for most folks that do big law for any period of time, which is part of why I recommend it. But it's intense.
Yeah. And I actually didn't mind all that work. And I'm sure you didn't either. There was something really
your
fun,
disciplines you. And
fun and exciting about it. Yeah. And it's just how you spend your time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big learning curve, but you learn a lot and that, focus time.
Yes. Yeah. But I was spending the night in the office a lot. And this will transition to my next job because I found
apparently not an advertisement for big law, right? Unless you like to sleep in your office.
Right. This was big law circa late 90s.
Yeah, no, so it's gotten a lot friendlier.
Yeah. And again, I didn't mind sleeping.
Yeah, especially when you're young and you're,
But I have a funny story. I was in the office at like 3 a.m. and I decided, I'm going to call and leave a message for the partner in Virginia who I'm doing this assignment for, and he will know from the time of the message that I am working at 3 a.m. And so I called to leave the message and he picked up the phone. I'm like, oh God.
Did you wake him up in the middle of the night?
No, he was just, he was in the office too.
Okay. So I will weigh in and say, I don't think that's typical of big law. I never called anyone at 3 a.m. So those who were.
No, and I'm thinking of the word. It wasn't as bad. I'm probably exaggerating.
No, but I think it's good for folks to know that it is an intense experience, that a lot is asked, a lot is rewarded and recognized too.
Yes. Yeah. But I found out I was pregnant with our first child, and I decided that I couldn't spend the night in the office. That time commitment was just too much for a new mother. And so I went to work for one of the McGuire Woods' clients, which was CSX, and went in-house at CSX, which was also a lot of work, but it was very stable. You go in at a certain time, you leave at a certain time, and there's really little work that you need to do on the weekend or holidays.
Okay. But also, we have a lot of folks that want to make that transition to in-house, right? It's a pretty common path where you spend some measure of time in a big law firm and then you pivot to work for a client or work in-house. Talk about some of the work that you were doing in-house at CSX.
At the beginning, I was doing transactional work. So I was writing contracts for the engineering department and then writing contracts for cities, for example, if they wanted to paint a railroad trestle.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Some Hollywood contracts. That was fun.
Oh.
It sounds more exciting than it was, but, to use the property for filming.
Yeah.
I was negotiating FRA tickets.
What are FRA?
So if the railroad violates one of the regulations, you get a ticket, just like a speeding ticket for a train.
Okay.
And they add them up throughout the year, and then you go up and you negotiate with the FRA how much you'll pay.
Okay. I know very little about railroad regulation.
Well, now you know a little bit something about it.
Yeah.
I worked on new whistle laws, the whole panoply of railroad
everything
work.
Related to railroad work.
And then eventually I shifted to labor and employment.
Okay.
And did a lot, mostly employment, but I also did some of the labor stuff, which in a railroad is pretty serious labor work.
Okay. And then you pivot to clerk for Judge Corrigan.
Yes. And so that was strange, right?
I mean, it's not typical.
It's not typical. Yeah. So I thought that the CSX in-house legal department was one of the best unknown law firms out there. The lawyers working there were exceptional. And I loved every minute of that job. But I wasn't going to the courthouse anymore. I wasn't litigating. Yeah, we were hiring lawyers to do that for us.
That's the one downside of being in-house, right? Is that you're not often on the front lines yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Judge Corrigan had a clerkship opening. I had been his intern in law school when I was working for his firm. So we knew each other.
Okay.
He had let me know about the position, and I just thought long and hard about it and thought, oh, this will give me a good way to go back into the courthouse while maintaining a pretty stable schedule, which I needed at that time.
Sure. And then you got a gig as an AUSA, which is for many people a dream gig. Talk about that.
That was the dream job.
Okay.
I loved it because I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I was in the appellate division. Oh. For some people, they think that's a nightmare job.
Not for you or me, because we're appellate nerds. Yeah,
you understand.
I do. But talk about what the difference is. What's the difference between being in the appellate division versus being a regular AUSA trial lawyer?
So I'll really make the trial lawyers recoil when I explain what we did in appellate. We just research and write.
And argue cases, briefs.
Yeah, you occasionally do oral arguments, but they're fairly few and far between in the government realm. Yeah. But we did civil and criminal, so that was interesting. We had a little bit of both. And our U.S. attorneys who I worked under would let us go and do a trial work if we wanted to do that. And I did sometimes just to make sure that I could stay away from my lofty perch in the appellate division and get into the nitty-gritty of trial work so I could understand that a little bit better.
I was going to wait and ask this when we talked about sort of judicial work, but I think I'll ask it now, which is you have taught writing courses here at the law school, and I know that you're a passionate advocate for being better writers. What advice would you have, given how talented of a writer you are, to help students cultivate that talent?
I don't think I'm a really great writer, I have to say. I don't have a natural talent for writing, but I do like to pay attention to clear writing. I'm worried, Dean McAlister, about the effect of AI and how much of an art this needs to be in the future. But let's pretend AI is not going to come into play, and I'll give this advice.
All right, fair enough.
I would say, and I've said this before, I've borrowed it from my mentor, Judge Merritt, which is you have chosen a profession that people will pay you handsomely to write, whether you're transactional or litigator. You're going to be writing letters, contracts, pleadings, motions, demand letters, emails. You're going to be writing all the time and getting paid so much money for it. With that understanding, why wouldn't you spend a lot of your time focusing on that craft?
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of this current generation did not grow up reading books, which is what makes you a really good writer, I think. And so they have to work toward that, on that skill. How do you do it? I think Brian Garner suggests reading good writing. So he says take like the New Yorker, the Economist, New York Times, Washington Post, those publications that have the best writers in the world, and they've been edited to the hilt, and learn from that and just read things that you like and grow from that.
Is that your discipline in terms of improving your own writing?
Yes, it is. And I force myself to read and think about what I'm reading. Why did they use that word first? Why is that clause put at the end of the sentence instead of at the beginning of the sentence? It makes sense to me. And then you just have to think about it.
Yeah.
But I find myself getting a little bit lazy. We have Grammarly in the court, and that suggests changes that I used to suggest myself on second review, but now it's suggesting it instantaneously.
Yeah. So let's bring AI back into the conversation for a minute. What are your worries as a judge who a big part of your job is communicating decisions, and you're evaluating student writing when they're seeking to clerk for you, et cetera? You see attorney writing all the time, right? What are your worries about the profession, about how we think about that tool, which could be incredibly powerful if used responsibly, but is dangerous.
It can be incredibly powerful, and I'm looking forward to see what it does. I guess if I had a worry, and I'm speaking from a position of not that much knowledge, frankly, but a softening of the mind, not using intellectual talent to create sentences yourself and instead relying on a machine to do it for you. And as a result of that, growing lazy over time and losing the ability to do it, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, I worry about that too. I mean, we put a lot of effort into helping students, we hope, rely on their own talents, but use AI as an amplification, right? Or a really good starting place, but only a starting place. And then a tool to create efficiency, but not to prevent the kind of creative engagement that students really need to apply as good lawyers.
That I love what University of Florida College of Law is doing in the AI front. You're not wholly rejecting it, and you're not wholly all in. You use it wisely, as we all should.
That is the hope. Okay, let's get back to the journey. So you're in a dream gig as an AUSA, working on appellate cases, the monastic practice of being an appellate lawyer.
Monastic, such a great word for it.
And then an opportunity arises to become a federal magistrate. Talk a little bit about that process. It's somewhat unique.
It is. So if you want to be a magistrate judge, you apply. There's an open announcement. There's a position open. A committee that is chosen by the chief judge will select about 10 to 20 people to interview. The committee comprises lawyers and community members. So they'll interview 10 to 20 people, sometimes more. And from that group of people, they'll give 5 names to the district judges on the court. The district judges will interview those 5 people and select one. And then you go through the whole background check that you would if you're a district judge or a circuit judge. And then eventually you start the job, have an investiture, get your courtroom, all of that.
It's a very thorough process. Talk about what a magistrate judge does on a daily basis.
And I will say a part of that process, it's not political, which is really refreshing. It's the only judicial position, whether it's state or federal, where politics really aren't in play.
It's really merit.
It really is. I mean, I say that. I'm not sure if it's true, but I think it's true. I mean, you're being filtered out by a committee and then by the district judges. The district judges are choosing judges who they want to work for them and with them and make good decisions for them. And so they're trying to choose the very best.
We're biased here. We have a lot of alumni who are magistrate judges in the Middle District especially, and we love them all. So I totally think it's 110% merit. But
there's merit to the other positions as well, but politics can sometimes come into play. Sometimes.
For sure. Yes. Not to denigrate any.
Merit is also involved there as well.
Absolutely. But we're proud of our magistrate judges. Talk a little bit about what you do on a daily basis.
Magistrate judges do everything that district judges do in the federal court. So everything civil, everything criminal, except we cannot do felony criminal trials. We can select the jury, but then we give it to the district judge for opening statements. And then we do not do federal criminal sentencing hearings. Everything else we can. If it's a dispositive motion in a civil case, we have to do it by report and recommendation to the district judge. Or if the parties consent to our jurisdiction, we take over the case.
You indicated you had wanted to be a judge from a young age. Are you finding it a satisfying, rewarding job? Is it what you sort of imagined it to be?
It's not what I imagined, because I didn't even know what it was.
Okay, you fair enough. You didn't know
the title.
Rule enforcer. Okay. Do you?
You would have been a really good judge.
No,
McAlister. You would.
No.
Maybe it's not too late.
No. I've got a gig. Okay.
Yeah, it's extremely rewarding, extremely satisfying. One of the greatest parts of the job is the variety that you get. So every day is very different. One day you're going to do Social Security appeals and take a criminal plea to a felony and sign a search warrant and then do an antitrust report and recommendation, and then you're going to do attorney's fees in a trademark case. It's every day is different. And so every day is a constant learning, which makes the job really interesting. I tell people it's one of those jobs where you get in at 8:00 in the morning and you look down at the clock and you can't believe it's 6:00 already. It goes by that fast. The question is, are you ever a subject matter expert? And you're really not, because of all of the subjects that are thrown your way. But you rely heavily on the good lawyers who practice before you and your law clerks, who we talked about before, to educate you on the subject matter. And you become an expert in procedural rules, rules of evidence, that sort of thing, but very little on the substantive law.
I mean, this is part of what I liked about being an appellate lawyer, was that you could do a deep dive on a particular subject and then move on to something totally different the next day. The last generalists out there are judges and maybe appellate lawyers.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tell me, we're going to have some folks, whether current students, future students, who want to be law clerks just like you and just like you hire now. What advice, recommendations do you have for folks that are interested in clerkships? What are you looking for? What should students be doing when they're in law school?
I have found University of Florida law students to be very well prepared for clerkships. This is a great pool of applicants, this school.
I paid her to say that. Not really.
But what they're doing here, I would say law review is helpful if you can get on the law review or another law review, because you're going to learn to edit and write that way. If you can be a teaching assistant in a legal writing drafting course, if you can be a research assistant for one of the professors, that way you're getting your research in. But judges, no matter what kind of judge, we're looking for someone who is smart. So grades really do matter. Someone who is hardworking, because it's not an easy job. It's not a walk in the park. Someone who can write. And so we're looking for a reflection of that in the cover letter and their writing sample. Someone who can edit and pay attention to details. Okay. There are some people who are not detail oriented, and they are not the greatest law clerk.
I'm looking at someone in the room. That's bad.
So I have found journalism majors are pretty good law clerks because they can catch an error.
Right.
But I tell the law clerks, the big thinkers are great to have also, but the attention to detail really matters. A judge does not want an order going out with a name misspelled or plaintiffs plural when there's only one plaintiff, that type of thing. It makes the judge look like they didn't care.
Right. Didn't pay attention.
Judge presumably will catch that, but the judge should be focused on the bigger picture and not on correcting typos from the law clerk.
Right.
So that's big. The fifth one is just a nice, pleasant person, because chambers are really small, no matter what kind of judge you're clerking for. And you're with that person all the time, more so than your family, really.
Yeah.
Because you're in chambers so much. And so if you are an unpleasant person, it makes the work life very difficult. So we're looking for those 5 things. And I'm really amazed at the number of cover letters that we get that are not touching on any of those 5 things.
Okay. That is worth the price of admission here, folks, to get that advice. How does one show attention to detail in a cover letter short of not having mistakes, which would be the sort of easy way to disprove attention to detail, right?
Well, the mistakes thing is the biggest one. I mean, getting the title right.
Right.
If you're going to spell out street in one place, spell it out in the other place. Just small things that you can take a look at.
Consistency and
making sure the typography is correct. And so it doesn't look like an electronic form of a letter, that it actually looks like a formal letter. Your reader is someone who presumably is over 35 years old and doesn't have a lot of time and already knows what you do in law school, generally speaking. And so you have to write with that understanding in mind.
Okay. That's great advice. Thank you for helping our students and future students.
Can I add one pet
please.
peeve? Okay. The cover letter. I see this a lot in cover letters, and that is the student has taken time to write a lot, and rather than edit so that they give a simple, short statement about themselves, they just select all and shrink it to 11 point. And that goes to the hardworking part. It reflects a little bit of laziness, because it would probably take several days to edit it and make it more clean and crisp and short. It takes 2 seconds to do the select all. and we know what you did, but also we're so old, we can't read 11 point. And so a lot of the times those letters get tossed because we can't even read them. So don't do that.
Okay. I love that. It's the old adage, right? I'm sorry I didn't have time to write you a shorter letter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Short and concise is always the way to go.
Yes.
If you can. Readability. And I think that's probably good advice for all, right? Don't fit things within page limits by shrinking font size and expanding margins, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. One last question, Judge, and I really appreciate you being here. You're very engaged with the law school and with UF. What makes UF special to you, or the law school? Let's make it a little more specific. You give incredibly generously of your time, and we're really grateful to you for that. What about UF law keeps you engaged?
At first, I was just thankful for the opportunities that the law school gave me.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have done any of those jobs that I just described without the law school and the mentorship that I got from professors. And so a lot of this is gratitude for what the law school gave me, and then paying it forward. So much of my career, I've looked back and seen that someone reached their hand out and pulled me along. And so I'm trying to do the same thing for law students and others. Beyond that, just as a general, I just feel good in Gainesville. I feel good at this law school. When I walk onto campus, I really enjoy seeing you. I enjoy seeing the professors. I enjoy seeing the students. It's just a really nice place to be. It's a great atmosphere. It's a warm atmosphere. It's a fun atmosphere. The alumni, when they're here, they're terrific. I usually add on a sporting event, so that makes it fun. There's so much.
Yeah. Well, I love that. It's a wonderful way to end on. We love having you here every time. It's a bright spot in my day. So thank you, Judge Barksdale, for being with us today, being our inaugural judicial guest. Judge Barksdale is also the incoming president of our Law Center Association. We're grateful for her leadership and all that she does for the law school. So listeners out there, I hope you would be lucky and fortunate enough to clerk for Judge Barksdale one day.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks so much.